We can list a few things. If you ask me, what is it that I can do myself? Well, there are quite a few things that you can do yourself. So, simple things like close the door and turn off the light. That is, if you are running an air conditioner or heating, and if you leave the door open, you are basically trying to air condition or heat the whole world. So, you don't want to do that. And you want to turn off the light when you are done, when you leave the room, and not just, or even if you're running the AC and the front door is closed, each door can be closed so that you're not cooling the room, so that you're not using the energy in that room. And then you can use energy saving bulbs instead of old fashioned light bulbs which burn too much electricity by turning a lot of energy into heat. But at your age you probably not even seen those so-called incandescent bulbs or phosphorescent lights. In India we call them tube lights. Now you mostly have LED lights, light emitting diodes instead of the so you have to use LEDs instead of energy saving bulbs. Turn down the heat. You don't need to be heating so much and wearing very flimsy clothes. You can put on a sweater and save on the energy. It's okay to wear the sweater or the sweatshirt inside the house, and you can close the curtains and avoid the house from getting cold or warm and so on. If you can go to bed early, well, it may depend on what you are doing, how old you are, what homework you haven't finished, or what movie you may be watching, and so on. And don't shower for too long, and the water doesn't need to be too hot. Don't shower too often. If you are living in a cold climate, you don't even need to shower every day, but then you ask your parents about that. But in a hot country like Mumbai, where it's hot and humid and you feel sweaty when you go out and come back, or you just played outside and you're dirty, then you probably want to take a shower. Fortunately, in Mumbai it may be so hot that you don't even need hot water, but you may have very little water, so you have to be careful. And you can use a water saving shower head if you have shower in your house, or if you're taking it with a bucket, then you know that you are saving water when you pour the water into a bucket and you take the bath instead of turning the shower on and let it run. Typically, people who use showers use more water than somebody who is using a bucket. Shower with someone else when you're young. You can save some water by showering with your brother or sister. Ask your parents on when it is allowed, and they will do what they need to do. And don't push too much water into the kettle. Don't waste, don't waste, don't waste. Insulate your house. That's up to your parents. That if it's getting too cold and you are just trying to heat it, and the heat is leaking somewhere, or the cold is coming in from somewhere, or it's getting too cold because the house is not insulated, then you can actually save a lot of energy and money by insulating it. But you are supposed to be kids. As I'm reading it, does that mean you are going to be responsible for it? Not at all. If you learn it, you can talk to your parents and say, "Mommy, Daddy, tell me how good is the insulation of our house." And if you're living in a rented house, you may not have any option on changing those things. So you have to again use a sweater and reduce the electricity bill and electricity use. You can use double glazed windows, which are energy efficient as well. Again, talk to your parents. Your parents also can get solar panels on the rooftop, or a little windmill in the backyard to produce some energy, and maybe run a few lights or store the energy in a battery and use it, and so on. And turn off the TV and unplug the TV. This is hard to do because even though the TV is off when you go to bed, it is still running a lot of the things inside, so it is still using energy. Can you turn off each night? Does it manage to keep the settings on the cable and so on and so forth? If you have to do a lot of work resetting it every day, then maybe you will feel lazy and not unplug the TV, right? You can unplug the PlayStation the same way, and you can unplug the computer. And don't use a car unless it is absolutely necessary or an emergency, or dad has to go very far for work, or mom has to go very far for work or for buying groceries and so on. Use a bike instead, but be sure it's safe on the road. And now there are many groups which are going together. There's some few teachers or parents or guides leading the kids on bicycles. It's called a bike bus. So you bike together to the school instead of waiting for the school bus, and you save a little energy. And travel by bus if you can, instead of taking a flight or driving your car, and go by train. So public transportation can be very efficient when enough people use it. And if you don't have to fly, don't fly. But always remember, these things are nice, but people who work by flying planes, or working in an airport, or people at touristic sites where they are waiting for people to come and spend the money to make a living, and the cultural exchanges. When you go to a new place, if you have to fly, if you're in the US, you cannot go to UK or China without flying, or it'll take forever. So then cultural exchanges happen. You learn about new cultures, which is really important as well. So you cannot take these very strictly. So don't have children. We talked about this before, about population. If population is reducing, but we are just consuming more and more, then we may not reduce our impact on the environment. So don't have children can be a good advice, but then you will have to reduce consumption as well. People are having fewer kids, but they are consuming more, so it can be tricky. And plant trees. Of course, you have to protect them, water them, save them. And you think, what is wrong with plants? Anybody can plant trees, right? So that's true. But also remember, sometimes they burn up and they can cause fire hazards as well. Drink water from the faucet and not from the bottle. Do not buy bottled water, but make sure you have clean water, that the water coming out of the faucet is clean, and your parents tell you it's safe to drink. They will know, okay? And eat seasonal vegetables, because the unseasonal vegetables and fruits probably are coming from far away, and that includes transporting them and emissions. But if there is a farmer living in Chile and making money by selling blueberries to the northern hemisphere in the wrong season, you have to worry about what happens to this farmer. So there are always things connected, as we said before. Eat insect burgers. Well, if you're a vegetarian, then you have to worry about these things, and you, as I said, you already may have a lower footprint than somebody who eats a lot of meat, depending on what else you are doing, right? So you're what are we saying? Basically, you have a portfolio of things you do. You eat something, you drink something, you waste something, you travel, and so on and so forth. Everything has emissions. So you have to track the total emissions. You can go online and find a carbon footprint app. There are many. So you take 2-3 apps and see which app is telling you what your carbon footprint is. And let's say you are young and you want to say, I'm going to keep my carbon footprint at less than 5 tons per year. So you can adjust. If you eat meat, then you reduce it somewhere. If you travel, then you reduce it somewhere else. Ride more bicycle, and so on and so forth. So eating insect burgers does work by reducing emissions of real burger, reducing emissions that are created when a real burger is served to you, or your parents bring home real burgers and cook them up on a barbecue grill. But where do you find insect burgers? Not everybody is selling them. So Eat less meat is a good thing. You ask your parents whether eating less meat is good for your health and whether you're getting all your protein from the meat and whether you can get it from a plant source and so on. And eat fewer ruminants. Remember, ruminants are emitting all those methanes and belching and farting that we talked about. So you don't want to eat ruminants, but chicken is not a ruminant, so you can eat that one. Don't eat steak, that's not local. At least if you must eat steak, just see if there is a local uh, meat place, there is a local butcher who can give you local meat. Don't eat steak, period. Well, it depends on your culture sometimes, and as I said, you may be offsetting it by doing something else. If you eat steak and your emissions go up, then maybe you will reduce traveling and so on and so forth. Eat less cheese. Dairy products also have high emissions. Eat fewer dairy products overall. Don't eat any dairy products at all. Use a solar charger. That's not always up to you, but see if your parents can get you one. And use rechargeable batteries and dispose of them carefully. Don't buy anything new unless you have to, and you absolutely have to. You don't have to get a new phone even when the old phone is doing just fine, or the old computer, the old iPad are doing fine, the old PlayStation is doing fine, and so on. Don't throw anything away if you can repair it. Sometimes a broken screen on a cell phone can be repaired, and you have to go find somebody who can repair it, and not everywhere can you find people who repair these things. And dry your washing outside. You don't need to use a clothes dryer. You can just hang it on a rope line. But maybe your mom says, that looks really bad. I don't want to be hanging dirty clothes for drying, or personal clothes for drying in the backyard. That makes us look bad. So there may be other things that your parents are thinking about, but you have to see if you can convince them that they can save energy and save the planet for you and your future by using open air for drying your clothes. Use an energy meter so that you know what your family is doing, and watch TV together instead of each one watching in your room, but maybe you don't even have a TV. Right? So all these things matter. And then we have turn down the brightness of the screen, turn off the Bluetooth, which is always trying to connect and use energy, turn off the GPS because it's always connecting to satellites and trying to track everything. You don't need to know exactly where you are every minute. Make sure the fridge is closed and not just leaking energy out, and use a laptop instead of a desktop computer, because a desktop uses much more energy. Use a tablet instead of a laptop when you can. I'm often using an iPad for reading and so on. Print on both sides. Do not waste so much paper, or don't print at all. Just use PDFs and borrow books from the library instead of buying new ones, and only buy sustainable wood if you can find out. Don't buy chocolate spread that contains palm oil, because palm oil is being grown by cutting down forests in places like Indonesia, and you don't want to support that kind of bad business. Don't buy cookies that contain palm oil, and don't buy soap that contains palm oil. Buy second-hand clothes if you are allowed. Some cultures say we don't wear second-hand clothes, but maybe talk to your parents and say, it's okay, mommy, in these times we must change our culture and adapt and use second-hand clothes if they are clean and in good shape. Give potted plants instead of flowers to someone. Giving flowers to someone basically means they will throw it away after a few days, and they may have come from far away as well. But if you give a potted plant, they can water it and grow it. Give this book as a present. Well, let's not try to sell books of a particular author, but nonetheless, they can buy this book and read up, or you can listen to my podcasts that I'm doing with this book. Separate your trash and recycle, but now you read a lot that recycling is not working so well, so maybe you can grow up and see how you can make the recycling actually actually work and work much better. And use a broom outside and not a leaf blower, and you don't even have to remove all the leaves. Many neighborhoods now allow you to not mow the lawn and let it be free, and not use the leaf blower and let the leaves just become composted. And don't sit under an outdoor heater. That's wasting a lot of energy. And when you use the washing machine, make sure it's full. Don't use the washing machine for one or two clothes just because you're in a hurry. And don't do the washing too hot. Always use mild temperatures or cold temperatures unless you really need to use hot temperatures. Buy efficient appliances. You have to tell again your parents, and don't buy more food and drink than you can use. Don't waste. Do not waste. Don't eat fruit and veggies from the greenhouses because they use too much energy. Don't eat fruit and veggies that come from a long way. But do you always know how to find that out? Not necessarily. You go to a grocery store or you go to a vendor and you buy something, they don't even know where it came from. It just came in a truck or a train or a plane. Okay, so use green energy if you have an option. Often they tell you this energy is coming from a windmill or a solar panel and so on. And join Greta Thunberg on her climate strike. Well, Greta Thunberg is that Scandinavian girl who has been making a lot of news and running a lot of protests and strikes, but you have to talk to your parents about that. You don't necessarily have to miss school to go to strike. You may want to just learn everything, grow up and work on solutions instead of just protesting. Support a political party that takes climate change seriously. That's again maybe up to your parents, and pass it on so that you don't waste things, pencils, books, notebooks, clothes and so on. Can you do that? Do you think all of it? Maybe it's a good idea to start small. Choose the things you can do. Choose 3 things that aren't too complicated but can have a big impact, or at least make you feel better, because you cannot always track the impacts, like recycling and separating your trash. You don't know, somebody is picking it up and going somewhere with it. You don't know what happens to it, so you don't always know. But eating less meat is a good start. Let's say using a tablet. Shower a bit less often. Once you have done that, then choose another thing to add. But maybe first you'd like to know why you should less meat, nothing that comes from far away, and nothing that contains palm oil. I tried to explain a little bit, but we'll come back and look at all these things in a food for your thought. You know what that means, right? Come back and see me. We'll talk more about these things. Aren't these exciting? It gives you something to do and feel good that you are doing your part to reducing our impact on the environment, to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and so on. See you soon then.